In the 5 years that I've done the show, I think for me, my favorite segment was the one where we interviewed Bonnie Woodruff. Bonnie lost her son Ben in a fraternity house fire at UNC at the same time I was in school at Carolina. So that interview spoke to me as a graduate of Carolina because I was there at the time,
Right.
and as a fire professional, and from her as a mother, she really opened up her home and her story to us. And I wanted to go back and take a look at that segment for my quote-unquote favorite segment in Firewatch. Joining me today to talk about her recent installation of a residential fire sprinkler system is Bonnie Woodruff. Bonnie, thanks for joining us on Firewatch.
You're welcome.
So, residential sprinklers, you've got one in your home, but before we talk about the sprinklers here in your home, tell us a little bit about why you decided to put one in your home.
Well, I am a mother who lost a son in a fire at the University of North Carolina in May 1996. And after the fire, we were told by Fire Chief Dan Jones that Ben, my son, and the 4 others that died in that fire would still be alive if there had been fire sprinklers. There were functioning fire alarms, but I have learned through all this that, fire alarms don't give you the time, give time to escape. So I sort of became passionate about telling others about fire sprinklers because I figured that if fire sprinklers could have saved my son's life, then they could save other lives. And that's how I became an advocate for fire sprinklers.
So you said that your son Ben died at the fire in Chapel Hill in 1996. Now he was in a fraternity house, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so the fraternity house, you said it wasn't a sprinkler building. What happened that day?
There was a parent-sponsored graduation party the night before, and it was held at the Phi Gam house, and it was for all the fraternities and sororities. Fraternities, I think, maybe not sororities. And it was a hot evening, so all the windows were open in the house. They didn't have central air. There were some air conditioning units, but a lot of the windows were open. The parents had rented these huge fans to keep the air circulating, and they were down in the basement. And my understanding is that there was a northwest wind that came in that night, and with the fans and the windows open, and the house had a central stairway, so it was like a chimney. And the fire started in the basement early in the morning from some carelessly discarded smoking materials. And it went up the central stairwell fairly quickly. And my son was on the 2nd floor. There were people sleeping on the 2nd and the 3rd floor. Most school was over, so most everyone had moved back home. Ben had moved back home. But he went back that night because some of his fraternity brothers were graduating, and the girl that he was seeing, her brother was graduating, so he went back and was actually going to spend the night there and then meet us the next morning, which was Mother's Day, at church. And anyway, the fire, all the students that were on the 2nd floor where Ben was, only one survived, and he heard the fire alarm and ran, and he actually got out, but the other 4, Ben and 4 others, died that day on the 2nd floor. 3 students jumped from the 3rd floor and were physically injured, but they survived the fire.
So following the tragedy, Bonnie, I know there was the natural grieving process. Did you do anything to sort of channel that grief to do some good?
Well, at first, I just would be present because I was too grief-stricken to speak. But Dan Jones had asked my husband and myself to go to the city council meeting that was that fall, and a resolution was passed that all the fraternities and sororities had to be sprinklered within 5 years. And in 2001, they had all complied with that ordinance. And at that point, I realized during that time that we were, getting in before 2001, I realized that if, like I had said earlier, if sprinklers could have saved Ben, then they could save others. And so I became an advocate. I would go to universities up and down the East Coast. I would go wherever I was asked and speak to administrators and testify before subcommittees of, legislatures and things did get changed slowly. But I knew that there were others out there doing the same thing I was doing. But we sort of needed a vehicle to channel us and get us together. And in 2007, the National Fire Sprinkler Association did just that. They brought 6 of us together out in Albuquerque, New Mexico for a forum. And from that forum, Common Voices was formed. And I'm a member of Common Voices. There's 6 of us who have all been affected by fire, either having lost someone in a fire or been burned themselves, and as a survivor. And we are called Common Voices because we feel like together and putting our voices together that we can make much more of an impact to help prevent other future fire deaths.
And while recognition and awards are nice for Common Voices to receive, there's something greater that drives you to do all this, isn't it?
Yes, Ron, I think I said it earlier and I'll say it again. I'm a mother who lost a son in a fire, and if that's not enough to drive someone, I don't know what is. And I started doing it in memory and in honor of Ben, but in the process, it has given me so much more than what I ever expected. Every time I tell my story, it softens the edges a little bit. My daughter, who is obviously the love of my life now, and my 3 grandchildren, once said to me, "Mom, why do you do this? Isn't it hard? I mean, how can you put yourself out there?" And I just said to her, "Molly, how can I not? If I can save someone else, how can I not tell my story and put myself out there?" So that's why I do it. I want to save other lives, and also it just helps soften the pain for me.
Well, Bonnie, I appreciate you having us in your home today and telling us your story and letting us take a look at your sprinkler system. And I think that the work you and Common Voices do has saved lives. So thank you for your work.
Thank you so much, Ron, for your work also.